Well, welcome back to Reality in Albuquerque. I'm Seven.
I'm Philip.
And we are now going to be doing the last installment of our dating series. If you remember, months ago, we did a series on love, then we did a series on relationships, and now we're on the final installment of our dating series. And I'm happy to announce that they are all being put into a book on dating. The working title is called Finding Love or True Love. There's a few working titles in the works, so none of them really work yet. But I am happy to say that it is actually a work in progress, and we will be publishing a book. Hopefully, it'll be ready to send off to editing in a year or so. In any case, this is the final installment. It's going to be on trust. And what I just want to remind you of is, before we really jump into it, is this is a dating series, right? This is meant to get you in the mindset for dating. This is something that you know we are preparing, that we've done a video series on for people who are saying, hey, I'm not in a relationship yet. I'd like to be in a relationship. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we talk about that help you if you already are in a relationship, but really it's supposed to give a premise for what does the Bible say about dating? What is the premise in the Bible for relationships, and how do we apply that to today's age, since obviously we don't have arranged marriages anymore, right? So this is going to be about trust, right? This is our final section, and everyone says that a relationship won't work without trust. I can't even think about how many times somebody has said that to me. I've had my therapist say that to me. Yes, I have a therapist. I've had people at work say that to me. I've had family say it to me. I've had everyone say that to me. A relationship will not work without trust. So I was challenged on this by my mother, and she said, "What are you talking about? Why would a relationship not work without trust? What does trust have to do with anything?" And I was kind of taken aback. Obviously, this is not something that anyone had really argued with me on. This is not something that anyone had an alternative opinion on. Trust is trust. Like, how are you going to have a relationship, especially a dating relationship, without being able to trust the other? I'm sure you've heard the same thing.
Oh yeah, it's the number one thing listed when it comes to relationships. What's the number one most important thing in a relationship? Trust.
Yeah. So my mom challenged me, and she said, I just want you to find one verse in the Bible that says you're supposed to trust somebody in a relationship. I thought, easy. How hard could that be? And lo and behold, 3 days later, I came back to her and said, yeah, there's nothing in there. Nothing in there. In fact, I was very surprised at what I did find. We're gonna get into that in a minute here. But before I even get there, there's gonna be a lot of people who disagree with things that are said in this video. I encourage you to disagree. I encourage you to challenge things that are said, as I always do in all of our videos. We want you to challenge it. We want you to, everything that either one of us says in a video, take it to Scripture. Challenge us. That's how I became a Christian. If you saw my testimony, I never would have been a Christian if I didn't challenge everything people have been saying to me. So I encourage you to do that. Leave a comment, start an argument. I will turn it into a discussion. I'll tell you right now, G.K. Chesterton always says, or he said once, at least he's dead now, that the problem with an argument is that it always gets in the way of a good discussion. So keep it at a discussion, keep an open mind. Anyways, but one thing that I think we can agree on is that lies in a relationship, that can be the most destructive thing in a relationship, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
So I just want to start off with, we're really talking about lies, and what is the basis of lies before we really jump into trust and trusting a relationship. And I firmly believe this. I think that the basis of all lies is in fear. Everything that we lie about, every time we get tempted to lie, is because we're afraid of something. Whether it's the fear of judgment, the fear of discovery, the fear of rejection, the fear of loss, and in contradiction to that fear, there's this, right? There's confession, and each act of confession is done out of the realization that anything built on a lie is fake, and that anything that is fake is not worth investing in. And let's face it, relationships are an investment. Man, they are exhausting financially, just your stamina, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It is a huge investment. And if it's going to be fake, it's not worth investing in. Okay, so we gotta get rid of lies, and that's something that we gotta keep in mind for sure. And forgiveness, honesty, and trust are all parts of a relationship. I'm certainly not gonna say that that's not. You know, I don't start a business relationship with someone I don't trust. At the same time, even then, do I really trust them? What does that word trust mean? So that's what we're going to get into here. And so, I've even heard it said in the secular world that whenever you stop trusting, that's whenever it stops to be a relationship. That's whenever a marriage is not recoverable. That's when a dating relationship is not recoverable. Is whenever you stop trusting. I'll just tell you something. That's a lie. I strongly believe that is a lie created by the devil. I know it makes me sound hokey. I don't care. I really do think that is a lie created to destroy relationships. That whenever there's no trust in a relationship, the relationship is simply non-existent. It is simply human nature to look out for our own interests. That's something that my eldest brother said to me. He's not a believer. And he said that to me. He said, it's just human nature to look out for your own interests. Why would trust be a part of a healthy relationship when that is our nature? And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's coming from a non-believer. I was, again, shocked to hear someone say that. But if you hear his story, maybe I'll share it with you sometime. That guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to relationships and making them work. Here's what I think a relationship is. I think our response to those people when they fail, that's what defines the relationships. It's the response to people when they fail. That's what defines a relationship. That's what creates a real relationship. And if a relationship is not founded in mutual trust, it is not. I'll say it again. A relationship is not founded in mutual trust. Its security lies in our trust in God. Obviously, these are Christian relationships, but remember, the first section of this series was about spiritual relationships. Everything goes back to that. Everything, we have to always take it back to that. Whenever we try to separate, the world with the spirit, man, we're in a world of hurt, right? We're setting ourselves up for failure because that is the basis of a relationship. It is whether or not we have a firm trust in God. That's it. If that trust is not present in a relationship, it will falter at the very first test. I think that's as simple as I can make it. So let's jump in. What are some things, Phil? Like, what would be your first objections, the first questions you would have when somebody was saying to you, you know what, trust is not necessary in a relationship? What would be the first? I mean, when someone said it to me, I was offended in a little bit. I mean, what would you say?
First thing, every relationship, every Christian relationship, your main goal is for marriage, right?
Right.
Why date if you're not going to be going to marriage? First thing would be, how can you have a healthy marriage without trust in your significant other?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, right? How do you marry someone you don't trust? I mean, this is a commitment. This is a lifetime commitment as a Christian, right? So how do you do that? How do you enter into that marriage if you don't trust that person? Why would you even consider it? Well, I want to tell a little bit of story. This is a true story. Very, very, very true story that I know a little too well. There was a husband who was, for 40 years, he told his wife every night, don't worry about the dishes. 40 years. 40 years. Every night he told his wife, don't worry about the dishes. And every morning, his wife would get up and do the dishes. Because he'd always forget. He'd rush after work. Sometimes he'd remember and he'd send an apology text. And sometimes he'd do it that night. But most of the time, he would just forget. He'd say, don't worry about the dishes, I'll do them in the morning. Or, so a lot of times he'll do them at night. But most of the time, he would just forget. And his wife never once lost faith in her husband. Never once. Never once in 40 years did she complain. Never once in 40 years did she doubt that whenever he said he would do the dishes, that he was going to do the dishes. Even though he never had. Never once in the 40 years did she doubt. Every time he said he's going to do it, okay, he's going to do the dishes. And for 40 years, majority of those mornings, she was washing the dishes. And yet she never lost faith in him. And she was never disappointed when he didn't wash the dishes. Now, that seemed like a tame example, but I've seen that behavior create behavior like that become the catalyst for divorces. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I literally have seen saying you're gonna wash the dishes and not doing that. Seeing you're gonna get the car washed but not doing that. Little things like that. I've seen them become the catalyst for divorces. It's not a small thing. It's a huge thing. Because let me tell you something else about this couple. 30 years into the marriage. 30 years into the marriage. If you can imagine that, just being a 30-year marriage. The husband cheated on his wife. Let that sit with you for a little bit. 30 years into a marriage, healthy, happy, Christian marriage, the husband cheated on his wife. Now he repented and came clean before he was found out. That takes some guts. And you know what? She forgave him, which takes some guts.
Yeah.
And they move forward, and now they have the strongest marriage I've ever seen. Trust never once factored into the security of their marriage. Now that's one example, but I think it's a pretty clear, pretty powerful example. We are, however, let me make this clear, we are very much instructed to be trustworthy. People should be able to confide in us as Christians. There's a Levitical law that says we are to keep secrets. I don't remember where it is, but it's there, and I will find it for you if you really want me to. But Proverbs 11:13, it says this: a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy man keeps a secret. We need to be trustworthy. We need to be able to keep secrets. We need to be able to do those things. When somebody tells you a secret, and then you go off and you're just like, hey, did you hear this happen? Now, that's just gossip, right? It's not a big deal. As a Christian, it's a huge deal. As a Christian, we have broken a trust. And whenever we are supposed to be trustworthy, because we're supposed to be trusting God, again, this all goes back to our spiritual relationship with God, we have basically opened the door to saying, you know what, Christianity, obeying God, not a big deal. When someone confides in you, that is huge. It should be huge to you. But, at the same time, I think people should be able to trust our judgment. Okay? So they should be able to confide in us. They should also be able to trust our judgment. The Bible admonishes the trustworthy wife. It says this to her: the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. That's in Proverbs 31:11. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. It doesn't say to the husband, trust in your wife. It doesn't say to the wife, trust in your husband. In fact, notice very carefully that we are never instructed to trust each other. Now, more than just be trustworthy, there is our actions. Our actions have to back us up. In other words, we need to be reliable. Phil, why don't you read the next verse there?
Yeah. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for the members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Yeah. Now that's strong language, right? He denies the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. How many dads do we see walk out on their families? How many moms do we see walk out on their families? There are so many single parents in our day and age, and let's be real about it, a lot of them claim to be Christians. A lot of them claim to be Christians, but you know what? If they are Christians, then they're even worse than a non-Christian. Why? Because we are commanded to be trustworthy. We are commanded to be reliable. Because we have a God who is infinitely reliable. And it's, here's this. Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. Here's what Jesus said about this. He said, again, you have heard it said, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is the footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your own head, For you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. That's strong language. I mean, how often do we say, oh, I swear I'll get it done. No, trust me. My word is my bond. All those things. How many times in a relationship, Phil, have you had to say, no, please believe me, absolutely, trust me. I swear I'm going to do this. I mean,
way too often.
How many times have you ever heard it said in a relationship?
A lot. I can't even count the number of times in my past where I've had to say things like that. And it's overwhelming.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. And I think Jesus was probably speaking the truth when he says that anything more than yes or no comes from evil. I mean, he's Jesus after all. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it, but you do got to take his word. Okay? So, I can think of, in past relationships times where that has become one of the major frustrations. Where either I didn't take them at their word or they didn't take me at my word, and it became this, well, how am I going, like, how do I know? How do I know you're going to do that? And it's like, what do you mean, how do I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. Or I would say to them, well, how do I know you're not going to do that? Or how do I know you're not going to talk to this person? Or how do I know you're not going to sleep with this person? Or how do I know you're not going to, whatever. How do I know you're not going to go outside of the budget we agreed on? Whatever it is in the relationship. Now, again, I understand this is for people who are dating. So more than likely it's going to be something like, hey, are you talking to your exes? No? Well, let me see your phone.
Yeah.
Well, you just crossed a line.
Well, a rebuttal there can be probably what, from a lot of people that are watching the video right now, is what happens when you give that answer and that trust turns out to not be there. You find out that they are doing that and you're rebuilding a relationship.
Absolutely.
That's the rebuttal there.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. Again, we're not commanded to trust. We are not commanded to trust. When somebody breaks our trust, quote unquote, they broke something that we were never commanded to have with them in the first place. Now, yes, we are commanded to be trustworthy. As Christians, as someone who is watching this video, who's thinking about being in a relationship or who is in a relationship, your duty, your honor is to be trustworthy. That's on you. That's not on the person you're in a relationship with. That's not on the person I'm in a relationship with. It's not on Phil's in a relationship with. My parents. It's not on them to trust each other. My siblings are all married. It's not on them to trust each other. It's on them to be trustworthy. The only time that we are called to trust is whenever we are commanded to trust in God. Proverbs 3, verses 5 or 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your path straight. Basically that's saying trust in God completely, wholeheartedly, without reserve, in every area of your life, including dating. I don't know why we always try to take God out of dating. I do it. I know I do it. It's like everything else, yes, I can put this underneath my Christian umbrella. Dating, I'm going to take everyone else's advice and my advice. I'm not really going to go to the Bible on it, though. Sure as heck, I'm not going to go to the Lord in prayer whenever I find a text on my significant other's phone to their ex. No, I'm not going to go to the Lord in prayer. I'm going to confront them. Right?
Right. No, absolutely.
That's not a time for Jesus to be in the relationship. That is the exact time for Jesus to be in the relationship, people. The exact time. He's got to be everywhere in it. And this is the foundational trust that we are that is supposed to be the source of our security. Okay? The foundational trust that is to be the source of our security. It's this, John 14, verse 1, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. So, to answer Phil's question, what do we do when somebody breaks our trust? What does John 14, verse 1 say? Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. Where in John chapter 14 did it say, trust in your wife, trust in your husband, trust in your boyfriend, trust in your girlfriend, trust in your best friend, trust in your cousins, trust in... Do you get my point? I mean, that's That's where I'm going with this. So, you know, what do you do? What do you do, Phil, when somebody breaks your trust? Whenever somebody says, "Hey, I didn't," or you know, let's say you're sitting together, you know, said, "Well, I'm not going to go out. No guys are going to go out with us." And you come to find out, you know, pictures on Instagram, whatever. Whoa, hey, these are guys that I know are interested in her, and they're all out dancing together. What do you do in that situation?
That's a really great question, and I have some personal, you know, stock in this. I've been in a relationship now for over close to a year now. It's coming up, and my girlfriend, I don't want to pat myself on the back or anything. She has a lot of gentlemen suitors, you know,
Suitors, huh?
A lot of guys that, you know, would like to be in my position.
Yeah.
And she's friends with them, and it's not that I'm not in that area where I say, oh, I'm sorry you can't hang out with them because they want to be with you or they have interest in you.
Right.
No. What I do, I turn to God. I trust in Him to look out for my best interests, and I trust in Him to, if it's the right relationship, if it's the right girl I'm supposed to be with, then things will work out for the best.
Yeah. And see, that's the attitude you're supposed to have. Now, that may seem like a cop-out to you. Oh, well, just hope and trust in God for the best. But what about when they do? What about whenever they cheat on you? What about what? Did you hear that story I started out with? 30 years into a marriage, which is now 40 years old, the husband cheating on his wife. 30 years. Now, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you have not been in a relationship for 30 years. Most of our viewers are under the age of 30 to begin with.
Yeah.
Majority of our viewers are in their late teens and early 20s. So if you've been in a relationship for more than 3 years, you're in the minority watching this video. You know, 30 years into a marriage this happened. And what did the couple do? They turned to God. They put their trust in God. Their trust was not in man. They repaired the relationship that way. So, now we're going to get into some things at the end here. I'm not going to say, yeah, just go with the flow, man. You just pick a girl and you go with it. I'm not going to say that. There's some practical application. And obviously this is all coming with the background of what we've already said about you know, what to look for in a girl, what to look for in a guy. We've been through that. So please take this in context, okay? But continuing on, God is the only person we can trust. Why is God the only person we can trust? Because He is the only person that will never let us down. My mom always said this to me, growing up. She always said this to me. Expectations in a relationship are a death sentence. Expectations in a relationship are a death sentence. And so she told me, never go into a relationship with expectations. Now that, to me, high schooler, college-age kid, that was not something anybody had ever said to me. And I've even said on these videos, be picky. And I will keep saying that. Be extremely picky. But you do not bring expectations into a relationship, because at the end of the day, the person you are in a relationship with is a human. They are a human being. But what does being human? What does that phrase mean? Oh, I'm only human. Right? I don't know if you've heard that. Right? That's being human.
Yeah.
Numbers, chapter 23, verse 19. I'm throwing a lot of verses out today because there's a lot of verses about trust. And I wanted to get as many of them in as I could. I didn't get all of them in. But it says in Numbers, chapter 23, verse 19, God is not a human that He should lie, not a human being that He should change His mind. Does He speak and then not act? Does He promise and not fulfill? Obviously, those are rhetorical questions. The answer is no. God is the only reliable person we're ever going to be in a relationship with. That's trust. That's trust. That's the only time you should trust. Because any other time you're trusting, your trust will be broken. Because that person is a human. I can't make that any more clear. I mean, maybe I can, but I'm not, you know. This is clear as I'm going to make it right now.
Well, you might want to look at it this way. Is that God has total control over your entire life. And putting trust in God when you're in a relationship, you're putting the trust into Him to say that you put this person in my life for a reason. Was it to learn a lesson?
Mm-hmm.
Was it to be my future wife, my future husband? You need to just let go and just seek his judgment in everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we've said before, dating is an excuse to treat someone else without absolute purity. That was in our purity video. Right? So, the person that you're dating, you find out that they're off doing other things. Dating is not marriage. Dating is not engagement. Dating should not reflect that. You should not be using dating as an excuse to behave as though you are married. Period. So whenever you are facing questions like that, and you're like, well, I mean, shouldn't I break up with them? Take a step back and look at your relationship. Because if that's a question that bothers you, are you behaving as people who are dating, or are you behaving as people who are married? There's a pretty clear line there. Are you treating that person with absolute purity, or are you not? Because that's when jealousy factors in. And let's face it, that's what we're talking about here. That's whenever you have an issue with what I'm saying here. Now, I understand understand that telling you that you're called to be trustworthy and not trusting, it's not the most romantic thing you've ever heard. I understand that. Okay? But you know what? It should give you more hope for a relationship, not less. Let me explain why. One of the fundamental truths that we can take from the Bible in order to better display a love that never fails is this. We are told, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 7. Let me read that again. Bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Did you see any exceptions in that? Did you see any semicolons? Do you see any parenthesize? Thank you. I forgot what they're called. But you saw the hand motion, so I was just going to leave it there and put it in parentheses on the bottom of the screen. No, right? All things, I think, is pretty clear. Now, that's a hard teaching. It should be. That should make you sit back and say, am I ready for marriage? Which then, if you're not ready for marriage, you're not ready for dating. Okay? Now, if that's a teaching that makes you stop and say, then I'm going to say, nope, I'm not ready for marriage. Let's get you back in the Bible study. Let's get you a little bit more secure in God before you start looking at marriage. Bible study is a good place to meet a girl. Just saying. God understands our desire for love in the midst of our need to trust. He understands that. How do we know he understands that? Proverbs 19, verse 22, it says, what a person desires is unfailing love. It is better to be poor than a liar. Why are those two together? It's a semicolon, by the way, in the Bible. In the Hebrew, there's no punctuation. So basically, this is the same phrase. So, what do we take away from that? What a person desires is unfailing love. Better to be poor than a liar. Here's what I think. While we're practicing being trustworthy, and while we may not trust the person we are in a relationship with fully, we can display unfailing love because of the trust we have in God. We can be honest because of the trust we have in God. That husband was able to go to his wife and confess what he had done because he trusted in God to protect his family. Because he trusted in God to protect his marriage. Despite what he had done, despite what his wife's reaction might be, he trusted in God to know what he was doing. He trusted in God to fix it, not himself. That should give you hope.
And of course, his unfailing love for his wife.
Absolutely his unfailing love for his wife. And we say, well, he cheated on her. Excuse me. But have you ever looked at somebody else while you were in a relationship? Because Jesus put a pretty clear line there. If you looked at somebody impurely, ladies, if you looked at a guy and said, oh, he has a nice car, I'd like to take a ride in that car, winky wink. Guys, you look at a girl and be like, oh, thank the Lord for jazz pants. Yeah, what are they called? Yoga pants or whatever. You know? Like, excuse me, but according to the Bible, you're an adulterer. Did I make that clear enough? I hope I did. That is the trustworthiness we're called to. So we failed already. Now, do you have the courage to be trusting in God? I just flipped it on you there, didn't I? I did. I checked it. I flipped it. There will be times when a person hurts you. Okay, let me get down to the brass tacks. There's going to be times when someone hurts you. Phil and I can tell you stories. We're not that old, but we can tell you stories about the people in our lives that have hurt us. And you know what? We can also tell you stories about the people we've hurt. Me more than Phil. I'm not. Phil has a better track record for that than I do. For the most part.
I'm only human.
I mean, I'm only human also.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there. What? We are professionals. There will be times when a person hurts you, and there will be times when you hurt them, but never lose sight of the fact that, what did I just say? Never lose sight, though, of the love you live in together. The love you live in together. Now, this is going back to months ago when we did the series on love. Whenever you love somebody, and this also goes back to the first section on spirituality, you are in love with that person. It's not the secular, I'm in love with them, I feel euphoric when they are about me. And when I think of them, I have lovely feelings and butterflies in my basket. That's not love. Love is God. God is love, right? So when you are in love with someone, you are in a relationship with that person who is a relationship with God, and you are doing that triangle thing we talked about probably every single video, right? That is being in love with someone. Never lose sight of that. Proverbs 27 verse 6, it says this, wounds from a friend can be trusted. Notice the word it uses. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. But an enemy multiplies kisses. It's okay whenever that person you love hurts you. You can trust that pain. You can trust it. And you can trust in God. Say, you know what? That person is relying on God. I'm relying on God. They hurt me. But better they hurt you than they just cover it up. Better that husband come clean to his wife than just never tell her. I hope this makes sense to you. We can overcome everything in love, and love even the pain we cause each other. We can overcome everything in love, and in love, even the pain we cause each other is trustworthy because of the security we have in that love. It's the security that we have in God. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, Phil, taking that as there's some things here that we're not called to trust each other. What other words are there about that? I mean, how much more clear can the Bible get about that?
It can't get much more clear. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 8. Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. Even with the woman who lies in your embrace, guard the words of your lips. Even the woman you lie with.
And that's actually Micah 7:5.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
My mistake.
But it says, yeah, even the woman who lies in your embrace, guard the words of your lips. That's in the Bible. By the way, that was the first verse I found whenever I was challenging my mom on this. Was that verse. Think about how stupid I felt.
Doesn't get any more clear.
No. Keep going.
Alright, this one, Isaiah
Here
chapter
we got
3,
it.
verse 8.
We're there now.
Stop trusting in mere humans, with but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem?
Mere humans. Why hold them in esteem?
Huh.
Now, Is the Bible putting down humans? Yes! Yeah, that's what it's doing. But it's holding us, Christians, to a standard above humans. Above human standards. That's the standard we're called to. So before you enter into a relationship again, do you feel like you can be held above the human standard? Are you prepared to be an ambassador of God? Whoa now. That's a... Get back in that Bible study. Alright. Our security comes from God alone. Micah 7 verse 7. This is 2 verses after the one that says, don't trust your wife, right? But as for me, I watch in hope for the Lord. I wait for God, my Savior. My God will hear me. We're called to be reliable and trustworthy, but never are we called to trust other people, not even our spouses. So clearly, hopefully it's clear, we must always believe in them. What? You just said not to trust in them. Believe in them? Well,
isn't that the same thing?
Love believes all things. Love hopes all things. Love endures all things. Does love trust all things? No. Did you notice that word was missing from that sequence? I did. I noticed it. Did you?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Phil noticed it. You're going to go back and read it now, aren't you? We have to trust in them as our partners. We do. There's a point whenever you're going to leave, let's say you're married, right? You got kids. You're going to have to trust your wife to be able to pick up the kids from school. You're going to have to be able to trust your husband to be able to get the kids to school without killing them. Like, there is some trust. But at the end of the day, are you saying, all right, he's going to get them to school? No, you're saying, all right, God's going to get them to school. That's what you're saying. You're saying, all right, Lord, protect them in the car. Lord, please help him remember to pick up the kids. Lord, please help her remember to feed the kids. Right? That's how it is. And even in dating, Lord, please remember, please remind her that she's in a committed relationship with me. She might forget.
Or that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. Right. That's not how it is.
That's the whole point of this lesson, right?
That is.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, we're never supposed to fully rely on someone. Ever. Ever. There's this thing called codependence. We might have its own little section on it. Probably not. But look it up. Look at the symptoms. If you feel like you have to rely on somebody or that you need somebody to rely on you, you have an issue. It's called codependency. And it's something that you need to look at. Because it's going to cause issues later in your life. It's something I struggled with. Something that Phil struggled with. And it caused issues in our relationships. And I think we're both man enough to admit that. And it's something that we have to hold each other accountable to sometimes. To put it another way, though, let me try to simplify this here. We're to put faith and belief into each other. Faith and belief, right? That wife always believed her husband whenever he said he was going to wash the dishes. Always. Always believed. But we're never to expect each other not to fail. There's the difference. There's the difference. Now, this sounds unromantic, but it's not. This is very romantic. This is that guy who, his wife comes home and she says, I'm going to have dinner ready for you at 6. He gets home at 7. Dinner's not ready yet. And is he disappointed? No. He just helps her finish things up. This is that wife whose husband says, I'm going to get the yard fixed this weekend. And a year later, he gets the yard fixed, and she's just happy that it got fixed. You know? This is romantic. This is way more romantic than whatever you were thinking of. I don't know what you were thinking of, but this is more romantic than it. If someone breaks our trust, it must not defeat us. Maybe this is the way I should state it. If someone defeats our trust, it shouldn't defeat us. Our security is always in God, period. And without that fact, our security being God, there is simply not security in any relationship. There is not. Again, it's something that I said in a previous video. We cannot be happy alone we cannot be happy in a relationship with somebody else until we are happy alone in our relationship with God. That our security doesn't change when we get into a relationship. It's still in God. Only God will never fail. His is the love that we are to demonstrate to each other. And His is a love that never expects or relies on us. Thank the Lord. If the Lord expected things of me, he would be rather disappointed. If the Lord relied on me, the whole world would be on fire right now. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Genesis chapter 15, he didn't even let Abram walk through the covenant. He walked both parts of the covenant for Abram. It's like, I'm going to make a covenant with you, but let me take care of both ends. That's God. That's the love we're supposed to show others. How cool is that? That's bomb diggity awesome. Man. So let's sum it up here. Sum it up. Here's a verse. This is your takeaway verse. This is the verse you're going to take, you're going to memorize, you're going to apply it to your relationships. Psalms 118. Pause the video, write it down. Psalms 118, verses 8 and 9. Ready? You got it? You wrote it down? Good. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humans. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. Yes, those verses sound very similar, but it compares humans to princes. I don't have anywhere to go with that comparison, but it's there. I could have thought of something, but I'm not going to. So let's break it down here, okay? In a relationship, we are called to be four things. I want you to take four things with you. In a relationship, we are called, 1, to be trustworthy. We are called, 2, to be reliable. 3, to trust in God. And 4, to never give up on love. Let me read those one more time. Be trustworthy, be reliable, trust in God, never give up on love. That's what we're called to be. We are not called to trust each other, and we are not called to rely on each other. And we're certainly not called to expect anything of each other.
And those verses we went over today, they will be posted on the wall, Reality in Albuquerque, on the Facebook page. Go there, write them down, check them out, challenge what you've heard today.
Absolutely.
If you don't believe in what you're hearing, go to the verses that are posted on there. Read them over and over again.
Read them in context.
And hey, try to find other verses to disprove it.
That's how you grow as a believer. You grow as a believer through challenges. G.K. Chesterton, I quote him way too much, but he says, I believe in getting in hot water. It keeps you clean. Challenge things. Challenge things. Get a little messy. Get yourself in some hot water. It's going to clean you up in the end. Right?
And if you have any input, you want to respond to the video, send a message.
Absolutely. Send a private message to either Phil or myself. You can find both of our Facebook pages from Reality in Albuquerque. You can email me directly, 7@realityinalbuquerque.com. Phil will have an email soon. I'm still setting it up. Not technologically savvy. That's all we have for you guys tonight, though. Trying to keep it a little bit shorter, but that's okay. You guys have a great week. Please be in contact, and hopefully we are going to start meeting somewhere regularly. I can tell you this, though. Every Monday and every Friday we'll be posting videos every single week. So stay tuned. Tune in for them. Have a great week. I think that went well. Yeah.
Other than the fact that I quoted the wrong verse.
It's okay.
I'm only human.
We are only human.
You like that?
That's good.
How you said that earlier, and I was like, I'm only human.
That was good, man. That was good. Oh man, we're so good.
We'll get better.